Here's your wrestling news for December 24th, 2020. And your headlines for today include: sad news for Daniel Bryan fans, his wrestling future is uncertain. MVP wins Brazilian Jiu Jitsu World Championship. AEW could be signing The Rock's cousin. Ronda Rousey reveals Vertebrae in her back is broken in half. What's next for her? You cost me $14,000. Stone Cold Steve Austin recalls backstage incident with Vince McMahon. Roman Reigns drags 2020 Slammy Awards. CM Punk attempted to buy a wrestling promotion. Sami Callihan teases AEW Dynamite arrival. Another instance of Vince McMahon losing his temper is revealed, and more. We are kicking off today with Daniel Bryan, as fans of the Yes Man should enjoy him in the ring whilst they can. While speaking to BT Sports, Bryan revealed that his current contract is coming up soon and revealed, "We're looking at me transitioning to maybe less than a full-time wrestler. My time being a full-time wrestler are numbered. I'm going to be more like a full-time dad, part-time wrestler." Bryan is certainly busy these days, as he's also working as a member of creative for SmackDown, also on top of being a wrestler and a dad. Of course, the fact that we have any Daniel Bryan matches after his 2016 retirement is nothing short of miraculous, but it seems the former WWE champion won't be competing as much in the near future. Over to Raw, as the Hurt Business currently has plenty of gold, including the United States and Raw Tag Team titles. Now MVP has brought his own gold to the team, as during last weekend, the manager won a huge martial arts competition in Brazilian Jiu Jitsu. MVP took to Twitter to show off his medal alongside the Hurt Business's various titles, and explained that the IBJJF Masters tournament he won the day before TLC makes him a world champion of the sport. Clearly, last weekend was a huge 48 hours for the Hurt Business, who will no doubt be wanting to add even more championships and accolades in 2021. AEW news next, and though the company has one of the most stacked and impressive rosters in the world, they could be closing in on another big name. On Twitter, Sefa Fatu, the youngest son of Rikishi, shared a photo of himself in front of an AEW logo, and that wall should be very familiar to any AEW fan. Sefa is the brother to Jimmy and Jey Uso, as well as the cousin of Roman Reigns, and though it's unclear how close we are to seeing Sefa in an AEW ring, the fact that they had him in is very interesting. The self-proclaimed problem was a standout as a defensive lineman at Dickens State University, but when his football career ended, he joined his father's Knox Pro Wrestling promotion in 2018. We'll have to see if Sefa joins with AEW in 2021, but it looks like the third-generation superstar will be in Daly's place in Jacksonville, Florida, soon enough. Now, WWE have always insisted that Ronda Rousey will return to the ring when the time is right, but that may be longer than you'd think, thanks to a new injury for the Hot Rod. While speaking to Digital Spy, Rousey explained that the bottom vertebrae in her spine is broken in half, which explains why she hasn't jumped back into the squared circle just yet. Rousey also noted that she'd be unable to travel with her injury, though given that WWE is not touring at the moment due to the ongoing global situation, that wouldn't be a problem for the former Raw Women's Champion, although we doubt WWE would want one of their biggest acquisitions of all time working whilst injured. Rousey went through a lot of punishment in WWE and is in a position that she doesn't need to return. And whilst that doesn't mean she won't come back one day, a broken back is certainly something that could hinder all plans. One person who knows all about overcoming injuries is Stone Cold Steve Austin, and this week, the former WWE champion revealed details about his unique relationship with Vince McMahon. Speaking on the Pat McAfee show, Austin spoke about a time when he was at a show where he took a bit longer than expected celebrating to the crowd, much to the chagrin of the chairman of the board. He said, "Vince calls me into his office the next day. He goes, 'God damn, Steve, you cost me $14,000 extra last night. It was overtime on the crew, so he's calling me out because I just cost him $14,000 just for that crew to stay overtime.' I'm like, 'I'll split it with you.' He goes, 'God damn it, I don't want your money, I'm just telling you.'" $14,000 is money that McMahon can easily afford, but really would have preferred not to pay, as the Texas Rattlesnake made sure the fans that night got their money's worth, even if it cost the boss. And now on to the WWE Slammy Awards, as the 2020 winners are in. WWE Champion Drew McIntyre unsurprisingly won big, capturing both the Male Superstar and Overall Superstar of the Year, whilst Sasha Banks won Female Superstar of the Year. The return of the year went to Edge's emotional comeback at the Royal Rumble this past January, and the Rated R Superstars feud with Randy Orton picked up Rivalry of the Year, knocking off feuds including Sasha Banks vs. Bayley, Seth Rollins vs. The Mysterios, and even Lana vs. the announcers tables. The Undertaker's final farewell at Survivor Series captured Moment of the Year, whilst SmackDown Tag Team Champions Montez Ford and Angelo Dawkins will need to expand their trophy case after winning both Tag Team of the Year and Breakout Stars of the Year. WrestleMania 36's Boneyard match between AJ Styles and The Undertaker won the coveted Match of the Year, though Roman Reigns, who didn't win a single Slammy, wasn't impressed, tweeting that, "When you're the most decorated superstar in the business, you don't need, quote, participation awards." Although the Tribal Chief wasn't impressed, there were plenty of winners at this year's Slammys, and given how the past 12 months have been, we feel that every winner earned their awards last night. On to some major CM Punk news now. CM Punk isn't wrestling anymore, but if a deal went down differently a decade ago, he might own a pro wrestling company. Apparently, he wasn't offering much at the time. ROH Strong podcast recently spoke to Kerry Silkin, who revealed a very interesting text message he received in 2010. CM Punk, while he was a WWE superstar, texted Silkin and asked if he would be willing to part with ROH. I get a text message in like 2010. CM Punk texts me out of nowhere and is like, "What would you want to sell Ring of Honor? I've hustled tickets on the street and I've had a somewhat successful business. I don't think text messaging is the way to approach sales of companies." That first text message might be like, "I'd like to talk to you about something. Those were my only 2 real offers. They weren't real. Those were the only 2 rinky-dink offers I've had." Kerry Silkin wasn't interested in the rinky-dink offer from CM Punk. The previous one he received was from Jerry Jarrett a few years prior. Neither offer was enough to convince Silkin to sell Ring of Honor. A story like this makes you have to wonder how different the pro wrestling world would have been if Kerry Silkin took CM Punk up on that offer. Now, it's no secret that Vince McMahon has a bit of a temper, and we've heard plenty of stories of superstars being let go without much notice from the boss. One person who knows how it feels to be future endeavored is Darren Young, but while speaking to Lucha Libre Online recently, Young said how his 2017 release nearly happened years earlier. Speaking about his time in the Nexus, Young said, "We were brought into this office and we were told by Vince McMahon and the higher-ups that we were going to be doing this, and we definitely had to deliver, or if we didn't, we would have been fired." Fortunately for Young and his fellow NXT rookies, the group wasn't fired, though never had the same dominance when they lost to John Cena at SummerSlam 2010, a decision that Cena forced WWE to make. WWE didn't fire the entire Nexus as a whole, but the members of the group didn't get the treatment that some had hoped for them. But at least Young was able to make it onto the main roster for another 7 years before his departure. Back to the present, as Lana was pulled from TLC's Women's Tag Team Championship match, a decision that was reportedly the plan for weeks. On Twitter, the Ravishing Russian tweeted out being incredibly heartbroken to miss TLC, arguing that she worked very hard for the opportunity, only to be pulled from the match thanks to a kayfabe injury by Nia Jax. It does make us question whether all those table breaks were necessary, as not only was the title contest not a tables match as fans expected, but Lana wasn't even involved. Though she did get a win over Jax on Raw, having Lana take the titles from her and Baszler would have been the perfect ending, but that wasn't meant to be this past Sunday. Moving on this week's episode of Impact Wrestling on Access TV, Tony Khan and Tony Schiavone once again appeared via paid advertisement. During the segment, Khan revealed that he could prevent AEW World Champion Kenny Omega from wrestling at Hard to Kill, but he will not do that. Instead, he invited the entire Impact Wrestling roster to appear on this week's episode of AEW Dynamite Holiday Bash, saying that they're free to join in if they want to. Due to this big announcement, it was inevitable that Impact Wrestling stars would discuss going to AEW Dynamite. After Tony Khan made the announcement, Sami Callihan took to Twitter to give an interesting response to Khan. While he kept his response brief, Callihan made it clear that he might be taking up Khan's offer. "You're welcome to send some of your people this week, or any week." "Oh really? Good to know." With Impact Wrestling and AEW's current partnership, anything is possible. It'll be interesting to see what Callihan will do should he make his way to AEW Dynamite. And we're ending the news with Maria Kanellis, who's returned to Ring of Honor with a huge project. In an announcement, it was revealed that Maria will head ROH The Experience, a new movement by the company that plans on giving more control to the fans, and we'll see how that works out when The Experience launches next month.